Yeah, Friday! Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you may be listening. Thanks for making me part of your day. This is episode 239 of the Ranting Weight Watcher podcast. Man, I got a lot to talk about, so we're not going to waste any time. Let's get into this! Journey updates. So weigh-in this week was June 28th, 2025. My current weight is 217 pounds. That is a loss of 7.2 pounds. Total pounds remaining to get to my 200-pound weight loss goal is 21.4 pounds. My work stats are going from June 22nd, 2025 to June 28th, 2025. I have a total of 81,475 steps. That is an average steps per day of 11,639 steps. We have a total miles walked of 35 miles. That's an average miles per day of 5 miles per day. I want to tell you because this past week, so the week before, leading up to the weigh-in of June 28th, I had my first week where it is a 48-hour fast. I had been, for the last 8 weeks, I have been working on making fasting a regular part of my life. All of this has to do with the immune system benefits that come from it. Now, as I approached this 9th week, I had to make a transition. So that transition was to go to 48 hours. And in 8 weeks from now, we're hoping to eventually get to 3 days. Because 72-hour fast means a complete reset of the immune system. I'm doing all this to prepare myself, to make fasting a regular part of my life, where a 72-hour fast maybe happens once per quarter, per year, but like a 24-hour or a 36-hour fast happens regularly once per week kind of a thing. And the reason I want to do all this is because there are so many benefits in relating to sickness and disease that have to do with fasting, right? And so we could avoid a lot of sickness, a lot of disease. We can avoid being on a lot of medications if the first approach to a sickness or a disease is fasting. But the only way you can approach it that way is if you it's almost like a muscle. You have to work it out in order to be able to do it. So I'm working it out now while I don't need to. All in the effort of, if the day ever comes, I will be not only mentally prepared, but physically prepared to approach any fast I might need to do. But anyway, this last week was the 9th week. So this would be my first 48-hour fast. Now, I'm a planner, and I like to foresee as many obstacles when I plan something as possible. So when I was approaching the planning phase of how I would handle my first 48-hour fast, I thought to myself, well, if what they say is true, that your fast begins at the end of your last meal. So if you ate dinner and you finish dinner at 6:30, your fast begins at 6:30, right? So if that's true, technically how I had been fasting is not actually a 24-hour fast. It's actually a 36-hour fast. So the reality is I don't need a 48-hour fast. I just need an extra 12 hours, right? And in my head, I'm going crazy with details like that and getting a little overwhelmed and all kinds of stuff like that. So what I ended up doing was I said to myself, well, if that's how it ends, if the fast starts at the end of your last meal, what if I reset the clock at breakfast? Because I had this little obsession with breaking my fast at breakfast, because my meal every morning for breakfast is not only my cleanest meal of the day, it is the most satisfying meal of the day. So my thought process was, if I eat breakfast and then my fast begins, I will break my fast at breakfast 48 hours later. And so Wednesday came last week, and I did as planned. I ate breakfast Wednesday morning. And I realized really quickly that eating breakfast was a mistake. And I'll tell you why in a minute. But it was probably my most difficult attempt at fasting yet. And it ends up being that where I went wrong is eating breakfast. See, when you eat at dinner at night and then you sleep all night, you're already, say, like I said, I finished my dinner at 6:30. So at 6:30 in the morning, you're 12 hours already in, and most of that time you spent sleeping, right? So I then reset the clock by having breakfast and then face the entirety of the time. I found it to be so difficult that day. And I was just like, why? Why is it so difficult? What the heck did I do? I had a conversation over the weekend with Allison. Allison, you know her. She's been on the podcast. I forget which episode numbers she was on, but she came on the podcast twice. She's a cognitive behavioral therapist, and she fasts as well. So I was talking to her about it and trying to, replay the weekend with her of why this was so difficult. But that Wednesday, I didn't just say, okay, that's it for the whole week. I figured I still have Thursday and Friday left, right? So I talked to her on Saturday. So I didn't know the reason why until Saturday. All I saw was Wednesday was hard. We're going to try again Thursday. But this time I said, forget the whole idea of eating breakfast and forget the whole idea that I need to break my fast at breakfast. Instead, I will break my fast at dinner because the fast has already started, and why am I going to give up that time, right? So Thursday comes, and my last meal was Wednesday night at dinner. So Thursday morning, I'm essentially about 12 hours in. I make it through the day Thursday. The most difficult part of that day was getting to the end of that day and realizing I'm only halfway through this. Because any other time where it was a 36-hour fast, I just had a few hours left to go. And I'll be sleeping most of that time. So I'll be ready to eat tomorrow morning and we'll be good to go. But that's not the way it felt. And to matter of fact, it's not the way it feels today. I am currently 24 hours in to my second week in a row of a 48-hour fast. It is Wednesday. It's July 2nd. Happy birthday to my brother, Anthony. Happy birthday, man. But, yeah, so it's July 2nd. I am 24 hours in right now. And there is it's like a mind game a little bit. Like you're only halfway through this. It's like this little, little voice kind of talking kind of a thing. It's totally different than the 36-hour fast in that sense. And this is definitely the most difficult time. Hope getting to the point where I go to sleep tonight, then it'll be a little bit easier. You'll probably wonder why it would be a little easier, but I can only talk to you about based on how it happened last week. So last Thursday, when I got to the end of the day and realized I'm only halfway through, it was all in my mind. I woke up Friday morning and it was like smooth sailing because I realized there was only a few hours left because I was breaking fast at dinner time on Friday night. So it was like the same mentality of the final 12 hours when I'm in a 36-hour fast. And then just to make things a little better, because of how much I am confident in my breakfast meal, I asked my wife if she would mind making me breakfast for dinner on Friday. And that's essentially what I did. I broke fast at dinner time and having my breakfast meal. Now this was a success. So my second attempt, instead of when I chalked Wednesday up as a mistake and I tried again Thursday, I ended up succeeding. So in my conversation with Allison, I find out a new vocabulary word. And that vocabulary word is ghrelin. Ghrelin. And ghrelin is a hormone that's primarily produced in the stomach that stimulates appetite and increases food intake. It's known as the hunger hormone. So essentially, when I ate, my body started producing that hormone, which is why it was a bad idea to start my fast with breakfast, because then I was already 12 hours in where no hunger hormone was basically prevalent. So because of that, I reset the clock and my body started producing the hunger hormone. And this was a big eye-opener for me as to why Wednesday was so difficult. And it made a lot of sense at that point. So I have officially let go of the whole idea that I have to break fast at breakfast. That's gone. I will break fast at whatever meal I want from now on, and it'll be as good of a meal as I possibly can make at that time. I certainly have lunches prepared. I certainly have dinners prepared. It's not as if I would be blindly picking food should I decide to break fast at lunch, right? So it is what it is in the end of it all. I just had to get out of my own way. I was creating my own boundaries, creating my own barriers, and creating obstacles in my way to be successful. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk to you about the obstacles that we create. And sometimes we know they're there. Sometimes we know we create them. But we do it anyway. How many of you know that sugar is an obstacle in your life? And yet, rather than believe that there's a possibility of life without sugar, you say, you create that boundary, you create that barrier, and you say, there's no way I can live life without sugar. And so you attempt to live this healthy lifestyle while doing the one thing that is going to hinder you, creating barriers. And it doesn't just have to be sugar. It literally could be anything. It could be processed food as a whole. It could be snack foods. It could be anything. It could be desserts. It doesn't really matter. It's a barrier. Something you know you really should be done with. And something you're not willing to let go. That's what I'm talking about today. But how many could there be? We can talk about processed foods. We can talk about alcohol. We can talk about We can talk about sweets. Literally, the list is endless. And even in my position, right? So processed foods used to have a hold on my life. Salty foods used to have a hold on my life. And desserts, if they were cookies, they had a hold on my life for sure. I mean, cookies and pie. That's where I'm at. With all the rest of the desserts, it's just like, okay, they're there. They're fine. But cookies and pie had a hold on me for sure. And going back to peanut butter, I think I told the story. I was realizing that peanut butter became part of a ritual for me. And that's how these things happen. Rituals become part of your life. And I'll explain to you the ritual. Every day, 10:30 a.m., I'm sitting at this desk working, and I decide it's time to go downstairs and get my coffee. Every day. Somewhere along the line, peanut butter became a snack. While I was pouring my coffee, I had a spoon of peanut butter, and then that spoon of peanut butter became 2, and then it became 2, and then a third one to come back upstairs. And it was consistently every day. And really, it was becoming part of a really bad ritual. And it had to end. And I knew it had to end. And I told myself, I can go a day without it here, a day without it there. It just didn't work. And you might be thinking, what's the big deal? It's peanut butter. But it was the same effect that potato chips have on you, or popcorn, or whatever other snack food you want to name. It's the same effect. And I know this because I felt the pull for it. I felt the pull more for the peanut butter than I did for the coffee, believe it or not. It was in this moment that I decided I needed to be rid of the peanut butter. The same way I was without cookies for a year in my first year of WW. My very first year of WW, the whole first year basically ended with me not eating any cookies whatsoever because of that ritual that I have spoke about on this podcast so many times. My Saturday and Sunday mornings, I would wake up at 5 a.m. I would go downstairs and I would have basically the TV to myself. I would brew a pot of coffee and I would open a fresh pack of cookies that my wife purchased from the grocery store that week. She went every Friday. She went Friday and she bought a brand new pack of cookies. I would eat on Saturday. I would eat cookies and drink coffee until I ran out of coffee. Then the cookies would get put away. And then on Sunday, I would eat whatever was left of the cookies and drink coffee. So from 5 a.m. to 8 o'clock, I would watch my favorite movies, TV shows, whatever, while drinking coffee and eating cookies. That was the ritual. When I started WW, I got hit my second day on WW was a Sunday. So Saturday morning, the day of my first workshop, everything's crazy, right? We're doing things, we're moving around. I'm not thinking about my ritual anymore, right? Because everything's like this new routine. But Sunday was as normal as any other Sunday, except for the day before, I started my weight loss journey. So 5 o'clock came and the pull to brew that pot of coffee and to have my cookies was there, and it was real. And I knew it had to be over. I couldn't just pull out a pack of cookies that day and eat just a few of them and then count the points for them. No way. There was just no way. I knew that abstaining from it was necessary. So I went in. My very first post in WW Connect is a picture of a bitten apple from that morning. I took the picture and I said, the beginning of a new life kind of a thing, where this was my normal ritual at this time on this morning. Now this is my ritual. And now here 6 years later, my ritual on Sunday morning starts with a 6-mile walk, right? So, hey, it's between 6 and 7 miles I'm walking, and then I come home and have my coffee. How about that? How different is life now? When you're willing to change, things change. But that was a recognized barrier in the beginning, and so many other things have become barriers, and I had eliminated every single one of them. Weight Watcher, those little bars, the snack bars that they made, those had a hold on me. There was just so many other things that had a hold on me. And it all ended, basically, the last thing I felt had a hold on me was peanut butter. I can't tell you right now if something else has a hold on me. But if I figure it out, I'll address it. Just like I did all the other things. But we are living in a world, in a society that normalizes you creating barriers in your life because they're saying, oh, it's normal to want sugar. It's normal to have these things. But for you, it's a barrier. So it's not normal. It's not even normal for anybody else either. People want to act like sugar is an essential nutrient. And it's not. It's actually, studies are showing that sugar is the source of every illness, every disease, every ailment, every ache and pain begins with sugar. How about that? How about that? The food of cancer cells, sugar. The barriers we create, right? I want to tell you about a man who created barriers for himself. And I don't even know if he knew, but he definitely, if you pay attention to the story, he created barriers for himself. There was a woman who was barren, and an angel approached her and told her that she would have a child. And this child would be blessed by God from the beginning. And if you are to have this child, it had to start with a vow that would begin before the baby was born. That she had to eat very specifically and drink very specifically. And this would all be in the effort of creating what is, I guess, known as a pure Nazarene. I think Nazarene is the right word. It's not Nazarite, because that would be Israelite. I want to say it's Nazarene. But anyway, the idea was that her eating this way and then him continuing it as he grew up would make him set apart, special. And it became very evident very quickly just how special this man was. He had a divine level of strength. And he was taught what he needed to do and how the sources of his strength, both physical and spiritual, had to be kept sacred. They couldn't be told to anyone. That he must essentially never put a razor to his head, because then he would lose the source of his strength. The spiritual connection would be gone, and he would lose his strength. He goes through life, and he starts traveling towns, and he spends some time in a Philistine town. And he falls in love with a girl in this Philistine town. And he comes home and he tells his mom and dad, he's like, Mom, Dad, you got to get this girl for me. I want her to be my wife. I want her to marry me. And they're thinking because in those days, a Philistine marrying a Nazarite or Nazarene was against rules because of idol worship, and it would be known like it would be almost like unclean to introduce a taint to the way you live life by to marry someone outside of it. I mean, that still goes on today, but it's more about skin color and whatever other nonsense they came up with. So he insists that he is in love with this girl and he must marry her. And so the parents make a way. They go to this town and they make arrangements. And it's coming to the day where he's going to marry her. And so he goes to the town, and on his way to the town, this is an example of his strength. He encounters a young lion, and this lion is ready to attack him. And his strength is so divine so the strength of God literally comes upon him, and he literally rips this lion apart with his bare hands. And after he had ripped and killed the lion, he had found in the carcass of the lion, he finds a beehive. And the beehive still has the bees and the honey in it. He takes the beehive from the lion and he eats the honey. He takes it home to his parents and gives them some of the honey. But he never tells them what it's from. He never reveals how he came to have it. But anyway, the day comes where he's marrying this girl, and he's at a feast in this Philistine village. And he's talking to the Philistines, and he's saying, I'll make you a bet that if you get this riddle, I will give you 30 robes and 30 garments and whatever it was that. And then if you don't get it, you have to give me 30 garments and robes and whatever. But the riddle is something pertaining to the honey that he took from the lion. And so he gives them 7 days, because there's a feast for 7 days. He gives them 7 days to figure it out. And little did he know that the girl that's going to be his wife, the Philistines go to her and say, either you're going to get the answer from him, or we're going to kill you and your father, your family. So then she goes to him and she starts saying, you must not really love me, because you made this wager with these people and I don't even know the answer. And he refused to tell her. He goes, I didn't even tell my parents the answer to that riddle. I'm not going to tell you. And she is basically relentless every day of the entire feast, just relentless, pounding, crying, complaining, all kinds of things, and just hammering him with it. Finally, he gives in and he tells her the answer. She immediately goes to tell the Philistines. And the Philistines go to him on the 7th day and they tell him the answer. And he realizes right away, the only reason you know the answer to this is because I told my soon-to-be wife. And she told you. And then he essentially beat them all up. Strength came about him and he just beat them all up. And the Philistines wanted more revenge at this point. So they essentially said that to the girl that he was going to marry and to the family, that if they didn't go get him and capture Samson himself, that they would kill them. So they essentially went to Samson and they said to him, We have to take you. We have to capture you. This is what's happening. They're threatening us. So he allows them to tie him up and take him. And once he is delivered into their hands and they start boasting that they finally got the man that has been causing all kinds of trouble in their lives for his entire existence, he rips the ropes with his bare hands and he finds the jawbone of a donkey and basically beats them all and kills 30 men with it. I believe it's 30 men. I could be wrong on the number. In the end, because he did that, the girl that he was supposed to marry ends up given to another person. So because they took his woman, the woman he loved, he went ballistic and went, crazy, causing havoc in the Philistine villages. So anyway, long story short, we fast forward. He's no longer with that girl, but he meets someone named Delilah. And he is in love with Delilah. And Delilah is this gorgeous woman. And she knows he's in love with her. And she basically is always pressing him, always trying to take advantage of how much he loves her. And it comes to be that the Philistines go up to her and say, find out the source of his strength and we'll give you some immense amount of money. So she immediately goes to him and says, you don't really love me. You don't really love me because you don't even tell me the source of your strength. You don't tell me your secret. And then she basically hammered him to the point where he said, okay, if you take 7 bowstrings and you tie me up, I will be weak. I won't be able to do anything. So she got 7 bowstrings and she tied him up. And then she told the Philistine men to come take him. And then she woke him up and said, the Philistines are here. They're after you. And immediately he stood up and ripped the bowstrings right apart. So she realized that it was a lie. And she started yelling and screaming at him, how dare you lie to me about this? And again, starts going crazy about the truth. What is the truth? What is the truth? And he says, okay. If you take 7 brand new ropes and tie me up, then I will be defenseless. And again, she tells the Philistine men after she tied them, they come to get him. She wakes him again. They're here. And he rips right through the ropes. And again, she's devastated that he lied to her. She wore him down so much that he finally told her the truth. That if a razor was taken to his hair, he would lose all his strength. He would no longer have the strength he has if essentially someone cut his hair. So overnight, she cut his hair. She invited the Philistines again. And this time it was true. He was captured and put into slavery. There was a lot of mocking and everything, and because he was basically defenseless. Somehow he becomes blind in the process. I don't remember the details. He was blind physically, but he could see spiritually, if that makes any sense. They were throwing a party to celebrate that they captured him. And they were going to worship their their idol. And it was at this point that he prayed to God that he would just get the strength back just one more time. And he put his hands on the pillars, and God showed up. God gave him his strength back, and essentially he destroyed that temple and the idol. And he destroyed more men and women that day than in any of the other fights that he had with the Philistines. In the process, he passed away. Can you see what Samson's barrier was? Samson's barrier was lust. He loved women. Now you're probably thinking, well, what does this have to do with eating? And I would tell you, if I can have the conversation where people are saying chocolate is better than sex, there's a reason for that. And it's actually scientifically proven that when you give your mind what it longs for, the same dopamine hit comes as if you were having sex. So if you can lust over someone because of sex, and you can eat something and produce the same thing in your brain, a dopamine release, as you would if you had sex, doesn't that mean you can lust over food? Couldn't that be part of the reason for our crazy attachment to whatever we won't let go of? How many of you know that potato chips is a crutch? How many of you know that you can't drink enough soda? How many of you know you can't eat enough chocolate? You can't eat enough sweets. The sugar. It's all you want. It's all you think about. You can't imagine life without it. Are you telling me that it's not possible to be lusting? To have the same feeling? You might not call it lust. But is it not possible? You know, it's amazing to me that Samson didn't see this coming. The girl that he was going to marry sold him out. Granted, she was threatened. Okay, fine. But Delilah, she must have been some woman. Because if you think about it, she begs and begs and begs. And he tells her about the bowstrings. And immediately that night, he finds himself tied up, facing Philistines. Doesn't that tell you? Shouldn't that be like a red flag? Like, this girl begged you for how long to figure out this information? You lied to her. And the first thing she did with that lie is compromise your whereabouts. And this is supposed to be the woman that loves you. She did that 3 times and succeeded on the 3rd time. And he didn't see anything. Like, come on, man. But I'm sitting here thinking about that. You could say that probably about a million things in my life. When you think about the whole history of my life, even now, there's going to be something that I'm explaining away, something that I'm giving excuses for. So, how many things? How many things are you giving excuses for? This podcast always has been and always is going to be about taking that hard look within and facing the truth of your situation, not to beat yourself up, not at all, but to instead master yourself, to become what is, I always say, is the greatest version of you. Because the greatest version of you doesn't have any hold over him, doesn't have any hold over her. There is a fully disciplined individual who puts very little power in anything that isn't divine. He or she has mastered every stronghold in their life. And really, how can you say you master a spiritual stronghold if you can't really even master a natural one? How can you defeat the demons of hell and whatever they have planned for you when you can't defeat a cupcake that shows up when somebody brings them to work? When somebody brings bagels in, you didn't expect that, but you just cannot say no. And you say, well, no, I can't say no to that, because if I say no to that, I'll just binge eat it. And somehow you tell yourself that binge eating would end up being worse. In other words, if you binge ate bagels, you would eat more bagels in a single sitting than you would making them a consistent part of your week. You somehow think that one binge eating session, you're going to be able to eat enough. Let's say you eat a bagel a day, and someone brought a dozen bagels and you binge ate 6 of them. Are you eating more in a month, eating it every day? Or are you eating more in a month just by binge eating the one time? We tell ourselves these things and we give power to things that they look big and strong and crazy. The same way that the fasting looked big and strong and crazy to me. The same way that many things had looked big and strong and crazy in 6.5 years on this plan. Eventually, we have to look within. We have to see that really we are creating the barriers. We are creating the obstacles. We are creating the problems that we have based on allowing them to exist. We told ourselves we need them. We can't live without them. It's too uncomfortable to live without them. So you go on living with barriers and obstacles. You just allow it. You hinder your journey. You hinder your growth. And you prevent, most likely, the ever possibility of the best version of you ever showing up. Because if the devil can defeat you, if the demons of hell can defeat you with a bagel, why do they even need to show their face? We have to see this for what it is. And this doesn't, you're not allowed to go from this podcast and start beating yourself up here. Take the lesson that is being taught to you from the mistakes you make. Make note of them and move forward. If there's obstacles, if there's barriers, remove them and move forward. I love each and every one of you. God bless you all.